Well, welcome to Genesis chapter 3. We looked at creation in chapters 1 and 2, God speaking into existence the entire solar system, all plant life, all animal life, creation of man, woman taken from man. And we saw some exciting times of the sovereignty and the power of God. And as we look through chapters 1 and 2, we recognize that we serve a mighty God. In chapter 3, we looked at man's disobedience. Yes, he was tempted, but he didn't have to do it. The devil didn't make him do it. The devil just tempted him. And man fell to one of the three, actually to all three of the forms of temptation: the lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And then we had the blame game. When Adam tried to blame God for giving him the woman and blame the woman for giving him the fruit, and then we saw the woman try to blame the serpent who beguiled her. But I think it's very important for us to remember that all the way through this disobedience, God had only given them one command: don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. One command. And yet they couldn't even keep one command. And so we see the fall of man. We see the price that man had to pay. As I mentioned in Friday's devotion, I sure hope that fruit was good, because that was a terrible price to pay. And today we continue with that punishment as we look at the verses in chapter 3 that are remaining, chapter 3 verses 20 through 24. Let's take a look at those. Now the man called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all the living. The Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and for his wife, and clothed them. Then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil, and now he might stretch out his hand and take also from the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore, the Lord God sent him out of the Garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which he was taken. So he drove the man out, and at the east of the Garden of Eden he stationed the cherubim, and with flaming sword, which turned in every direction to guard the way to the tree of life. So that's the way Eve ate Adam and her out of house and home in the garden. Well, if you look carefully at these verses, you'll see that Eve was the name that Adam gave his wife. And Eve in the original Hebrew is chava, and that means to breathe or to live. And I can remember during my lifetime that the scientists used to ridicule us that believed in the Bible, saying that Eve was the mother of all creation. And yet in 2010, a number of scientists proved without any doubt through genetics that from one woman came all mankind. And that was quite a breathtaking discovery, because science had laughed at us about saying Eve was the mother of all. And we have all of the findings in 2010, and you'll see that science someday will catch up with the Bible. They do disagree about the time of Eve. They say that she lived about 200,000 years ago, instead of maybe 10 or 15,000 years ago. But nevertheless, science someday will catch up. So we see Eve getting the name of the first woman, to breathe or to live was her name. And we also see that God made the garments out of skins for man and woman. And that's pretty significant, because that was the first sacrifice for man, the first shed blood for man. Up until that time, he had created animals to eat plants. He had created man to be able to live on plants. And now an animal must die so that man could have a covering. And in days ahead, blood would be shed again, this time his only son, so that man's sin could be covered. Interesting, isn't it? That even from the book of Genesis we see the picture playing out, that man's sin would cause sacrifice, would cause the blood to be shed. And that blood was Jesus Christ to cover our sin. So as we look at this, we see then that man continues to pay the price for his sin. He's driven out of this beautiful, perfect plan that God had for man in the garden. And cherubim, a form of angel, are placed at the gate so that man can't get to the tree of life, so that what God said, he promised, that if you eat of the fruit, you'll surely die. Now he would fulfill that promise, and man would surely die. He would not be able to eat of the tree of life, but rather he would have his days numbered, and he would die as a consequence of his sin. Penalty? I sure hope that fruit was good, because they sure paid a terrible price. And that's my thought for the day. God bless.